Trent Williams, close to a deal. Brandon Aiyuk, is he close? I don't know. Maybe Washington is a new option. And who to watch? 49ers-Raiders preseason finale coming at you right now.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker at BD Peacock at Crocky209. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every stinking day. We love our everydayers, and we always appreciate it when you hit that subscribe button. So please do that now on YouTube or wherever you are listening to this podcast. Maybe hit the notification bell as well, so you know when we go live. You don't want to miss a show of Peacock every day on Locked On 49ers. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. All right. Interesting little trade happened in the NFL, and it wasn't involving one Brandon Aiyuk, but it did involve a team that Brandon Aiyuk has said he liked to go to, and is now again on social media liking things that have him going to the Washington Commanders or to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So this thing with Aiyuk still not done, Croc, even though maybe it's 55-45, still think it's going to happen. Feels imminent for Trent Williams' new deal to happen. But the Washington Commanders sent former first-round wide receiver Jahan Dotson to the Philadelphia Eagles inside the division. Ended up getting a third-round pick back. They had to send a fifth-rounder with them. They got some seventh-rounders as well. So convoluted trade with a lot of picks going each direction. But essentially, they had to give up a fifth with the player, got back a third, plus a couple of seventh-round picks. So extra draft picks for the rebuild there in Washington, and would seem to have a bigger need now at wide receiver. And that's the place that Brandon Aiyuk would like to go play the most. The guy who drafted Brandon Aiyuk, one of the guys that drafted Brandon Aiyuk, Adam Peters, is the GM in Washington. But Washington, well, reportedly a while ago, they were just straight up out on Brandon Aiyuk. Do you think that they're maybe back in on Brandon Aiyuk? Wouldn't Jahan Dotson have been a piece that the 49ers might want back in such a deal? To me, this kind of signals that the 49ers in Washington for sure haven't talked about Brandon Aiyuk, because I would think that Jahan Dotson would be a part of this thing, unless the 49ers straight up don't like Jahan Dotson either, or Adam Peters is like, you don't want this guy around, we'll get a pick back. We'll send you a pick back instead for Brandon Aiyuk. What do you think, Croc?
Well, that was my initial thought, right? I know the 49ers, they wanted a receiver in this trade. And if you told me, without knowing anything that's going on, would I rather have, I don't even want to phrase it like that. If you ask me, hey, man, what do you think about Jahan Dotson being on the 49ers? I'd be like, yeah, there's a dynamic receiver coming out of college, quick, twitchy, man, put him in the slot. He do some really good things. That part, I'd be like, yeah, let's do that. But and again, there's a difference between college scouting and then pro scouting. And everything that I've done on Dotson, it was all college scouting. For a team to trade you, right, the first round pick, to trade you inside the same division, not even the same conference, I think that says enough to me about whatever Dotson has been at the NFL level. So maybe that is a case of the 49ers just saying, you know what? Nah, we're out. We're out on Dotson, because your own team is willing to trade you within the division. I don't think we want to touch you with a 10-foot pole.
At that point, I think I'd probably rather have the third round pick when you put it that way. Todd says, 49ers fan living in PA. Love hearing from our fans that are outside the Bay Area. I know there's so many around the world. Shout out to all of our listeners there in, are you in Steelers country? Or are you in Eagles country? Because I really feel bad for you if you're in Eagles country over there. He says, I need Lynch to get the Aiyuk deal done so that the Steelers fans surrounding me stop thinking they could get by BA for a second round pick and change. So apparently he's closer to the Pittsburgh area. And yeah, man, second round and change is not going to get it done, because guess what? The 49ers haven't done it. And so I don't see that happening. And here's the match I like for Washington is not only the Adam Peters thing. He drafted Aiyuk. Ayuk's best buddy is the quarterback there. How cool is it, by the way, if your best friend is an NFL quarterback? Croc. My best friends ain't professional anything hardly, especially not NFL quarterbacks. Oh, we lost Croc. He disappeared for a second. There he is. He's back. Oh no, he's gone again. But the fit works because here's the thing about the Washington second round pick that would potentially be coming is it's a much higher second round pick than the Steelers second round pick. So if the 49ers were to deal with the team, I would think that it benefits Aiyuk. It benefits the 49ers more to get that probably higher second round pick. And, Adam Peters can go get the guy that he helped scout and draft with the 49ers. So fit wise, I like Aiyuk to Washington better for really all parties than Pittsburgh.
I think it makes a lot of difference, and being able to potentially get a higher draft pick if things don't go well with Washington. I like that aspect of it. I think overall, though, the biggest thing that I've been trying to wrap my head around, do you pay, because 49ers are kind of in this situation as well, do you pay a bunch of money to another receiver? Like Terry McLaurin, even though his contract isn't massive and up to date with like some of the newer guys, it's still a big contract for a receiver. Like he's getting paid good money. And, he's getting up there a little bit more in age. I think he was a little bit older by the time he got drafted. So, there is that aspect of, well, how many more years does he have? So can you pay another big time receiver while you have your quarterback on the first year of his rookie contract? I think that's something that definitely potentially can make sense. But from a roster building standpoint, I think there may be other potential needs that you want to apply when building around your young rookie quarterback. So Aiyuk, to me, he does make a lot of sense in from the fact of, hey, talented receiver, you got McLaurin, you got Aiyuk, you got, you like Robinson in the backfield, but I don't know. I just from a financial standpoint, does that make sense for Adam Peters
to pay a whole bunch of money? I mean, help your young quarterback develop. We've seen what it does for young quarterbacks to have better talent, better receiving talent. And Brandon Aiyuk's not an older guy, and he would be a building piece for the future too. So I could absolutely see Washington being willing to pay two wide receivers at the same time. And really, McLaurin's not making that much money because wide receiver contracts kind of exploded after he did his deal. What's funny is that let's say the 49ers worked out a deal where McLaurin came to the Niners. You know what happens next offseason? Terry McLaurin holds out for more money. You know what I mean? So that might, you got to pay everybody top of the market money if they're a good player in the NFL these days. Like there's no discounts available anymore unless you're just on that rookie contract and you're not up for a new deal yet.
I like what the 49ers have done, right? Like obviously you don't want to see this contract battle with players, but when you've done a really good job acquiring talent, however you've gotten it, then guys do have to get paid. But looking at how the 49ers have just built this roster, I feel like it's kind of built to be sustainable. There are a lot of people that continue to talk about a window, a Super Bowl window for the 49ers. But I don't know, maybe I'm naive and maybe things would change when they have to pay Brock Purdy, and maybe that's what they're preparing for. But I feel like they've done a terrific job of kind of mixing some older guys with some, younger guys, and even some of the younger guys not as young, but continue to just add talent and places that just work for the squad. And if I'm Kyle Shanahan and I'm John Lynch, I do think that they had an opportunity this offseason to decide which direction you want to go to moving forward. I thought it would have been to build around Brandon Aiyuk and potentially let go of Deebo Samuel. But I think they have their vision for this squad and numbers, and they're not willing to move off of that for the betterment of the future of the 49ers.
Totally agree. I want to talk a little bit more about 49ers and Raiders next. What players are we most excited to watch? I want to hear in the chat, which players are you most excited to watch on both teams? There's something to look for on the Raiders side too, which intrigues me, and we'll get into that as well next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is sponsored by BetterHelp Online Therapy. And I'm sure everyone has some self-care non-negotiables. Maybe you never skip leg day, but how about therapy day? When your schedule is packed, you got kids, you got activities, you got big work projects, a whole lot more. You're trying to see friends. You're trying to maybe slip in a 9-hole golf round maybe. and you've got this computer in your pocket that is buzzing all the time, bothering you and keeping you from potentially what you really want to do and what makes you happy. And even when you know what makes you happy, sometimes it's hard to make time for it. But when you feel like you have no time for yourself, non-negotiables like therapy are more important than ever. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and is suited to your schedule. So just fill out a brief questionnaire. You get matched to a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today. Get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. All right, Croc, I want to go to this in the chat because this was kind of part of the 49ers-Raiders. And I haven't seen who exactly is going to play and who's actually going to start. The 49ers are going to have some starters out there. We're going to see more Brock Purdy. I hope he has a better receiving group and group of blockers in front of him in this preseason game. But Lee says, what's Davante Adams' half-a-season rental trade look like? A third and a fifth? I am absolutely, especially since the receiver show happened, every single time the Raiders are on TV, whether it's against the 49ers in the preseason and he's on the field or on the sideline or otherwise, I am going to be watching Davante Adams and reading his body language, because if I get any inkling that he wants out, and especially if Brandon Aiyuk gets traded, the Raiders are the first phone call you're making if you're the 49ers midseason, if you need reinforcements there at wide receiver.
I think that goes back to our original point, and that was 49ers. You have really good pieces in place right now. You do not need a wide receiver in return. Let's say, even if we just take what Jacob Cowing has given, again, listen, I know it's not game planned and schemed against and things like that, but just whatever ability that you just saw Jacob Cowing have, you put that out there with Deebo Samuel, Juwan Jennings, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, right? And add whatever you get from Ricky Pearsall. That should be good enough to at least get you through the first half of the season and see where you're at. And then, like you said, I mean, you brought this up. You said, listen, middle of the year, you'd be able to get a receiver for cheaper. There's going to be a team that's willing to dump a guy. And if anybody may potentially get dumped, it might be a guy like Davante Adams, where it's like, all right, look, Raiders, we're out of it. Minshew and Aiden O'Connell, it's just not going to work with these guys. This guy's frustrated. Let's get him across the across the bay, but let's get him to the South Bay and with the 49ers. And it would be drastically cheaper. And you know what kind of production you're going to get from him right away. He's going to pick up the offense. He's smart. He's hardworking. I think the biggest thing is, does he match what the 49ers do? Obviously, he comes from an offense that has some similar principles in Green Bay, but the 49ers just run there so different. Like Green Bay ran everything through Davante Adams, and he was so productive doing that. And it worked a lot of the time, but not when they needed it most, right? Aaron Rodgers eventually got outdueled by Jimmy Garoppolo and Colin Kaepernick and company. But I just, that's the part that I don't care for, how the 49ers are going about this. If the holdup on one or two of these trades was 100%, we need a receiver in return right now, that might have been the wrong way to go about it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. And give your young guys a chance to develop. Maybe by week 5, 6, you really love what you're seeing from Ricky Pearsall, and he's healthy, and Jacob Cowing, and you realize you don't need to make that move, and you can use those draft picks in the future, or you can use those draft picks you would have traded that you got instead of a wide receiver. You could use that to get a different position. Maybe you feel like you need another defensive lineman instead, or something like that. And with a couple more targets for. I mean, because really, what are you talking about? 6 targets a game is what Brandon Aiyuk averages. Well, 2 to Deebo, 2 to Kittle. You give 1 to Juwan Jennings. You give 1 to Christian McCaffrey, and you give the rest to whoever starts in his place. I mean, it's not that hard to replace. I mean, I made it sound easier than it actually would be.
Yeah, you made it. It's not.
Well, we already want.
It's not that hard
anyway.
Well, when you have so many talented guys, it's not hard for us to sit here and figure out where you would make up that production.
Right.
But the hard part is, it's probably not going to play out exactly how you want when a guy did so well in the offense in his role. Now, somebody did ask, would Davante Adams, where was it at? Oh, here we go. Would Adams be better than Aiyuk in this system? Davante Adams is just a better receiver.
I mean,
so
he's a
and that's no slight at Aiyuk. Like, Adams is just one. He had 15, 1,600 yards a year ago with Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback. Well, no, Derek Carr, excuse me. Carr is with Carr. But he's still a terrific receiver. I feel like people think he's like falling off. Just last year just got way too wonky for him to be as productive as he was. But, I mean, he was a year removed from having 15, 1,600 yards or whatever it was. So, Davante Adams is still Davante Adams. He's still a top, 2, 3, 4, 5 easily receiver in the league. And some people still might consider him the top receiver. But, again, so you can replace him 1-for-1 with Brandon Aiyuk. But I do think it gets a little trickier with just target share to other guys to replace his production. You can kind of get close, but I think in certain moments, do you get the same type and caliber of receiver that you got from Aiyuk? I'd say no until proven otherwise.
Right, but it gives you a chance to develop and see what you have with some of your other players. And Wood Gravy in the chat says Josh Dubois, who's a writer for the Associated Press, and I've heard this from other people too. It's says the Raiders would never trade him to the 49ers, period, because of ownership and past beefs. It said, we'll trade him at the deadline or next season, but not to the 49ers. And look, that's okay too. The point is that there's other players that could be available at the trade deadline that aren't available right now and potentially for cheaper. So, maybe it's DeAndre Hopkins. I don't know. It's anybody who you can't get right now. Maybe it's Cortland Sutton. They're not available now, but they might be available in mid-season. And give yourself a chance to see what you have in your own guys first. Maybe you find out you don't need to go make a huge trade for some wide receiver. And if you do, that trade is more likely to be out there for you at the deadline than it is right now, because everyone's ready for their season. Everyone's 0-0, thinks they're in it.
The whole thing with organizations holding grudges, I think it's kind of a myth. I think a lot of people thought Washington would be on that, and they traded Chase Young for what was it, fourth round pick?
Third, late, the comp third, yeah.
But that was the whole thing where Washington would not do business with the Shanahans. And I think Snyder, he's out now. I don't know if it was just he was on his way out, so he's like, I don't care anymore. But they not only did business with the 49ers during the Chase trade, but also the Trent Williams trade. So I know it comes off as, the Raiders would never do business, but it's like, if it makes sense for them, they 100% would.
Dude, Washington just traded Jahan Dotson inside the division to the Philadelphia Eagles. Right?
Yeah.
So maybe, but if it's the best deal for your organization, you're going to do it. And I think the thing that would happen is Davante Adams would have a say where he goes to, because of his contract, and there's some balloon years on his contract. So you have to figure that out. And so a team might not want to trade for him unless they're willing to figure out how to work out a new deal with him. And he might want a new deal, and he might say, no, I'm not going to play. So there's a lot of things that a player of his stature could have a say into. And if he says the Niners are the only team he wants to go to, and that's where he wants to go, then maybe he could potentially get that done. But the point is, and I think we're in agreement on this, Croc, you don't have to get a wide receiver, and you especially shouldn't get you shouldn't overvalue just getting a body back at wide receiver either. If you're the 49ers, get the best deal. If that involves a player or a receiver, then fine, but get the best deal. And if it's only picks, then it's only picks, and figure that out. It's still one of the best teams in the NFL without Brandon Aiyuk.
I was a little shocked that was the holdup at one point, shopping and trying to see if you can get a receiver in return. It's like, well, how much do you have to hate the guys that you have in house?
The 49ers like, oh shoot, there goes our Super Bowl window if we have to start Chris Conley or Robbie Chosen or a rookie for 6-8 games.
All right.
Can you not win a Super Bowl now? I don't think that's the case. You don't have to get a receiver back. Sure, I get asking for one, but if the right guy's not there, that shouldn't hold up the trade if you're getting the value back in picks or other players.
And that's when you have Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Juwan Jennings, like guys you like, on top of not knowing exactly what you'll get from the rookies.
Mm-hmm.
But look, they're literally all pros, 3 all pros right there.
You know what's tough though too about the rookies is both Pearsall and Cowing have missed time in camp, and Kyle Shanahan, it's hard to envision him really trusting a rookie anyway out of the gate. I mean, you think he's going to allow Cowing or Ricky Pearsall, even if both are healthy going into the season, to have any sort of important role with the 49ers, let alone starting at wide receiver. I can't see him allowing that and wanting it. He just I think even Pooney, who's completely won the job, if Burford all of a sudden is healthy, would you be shocked if Burford's the starter at right guard, right? Because maybe there's just some part of the playbook where Pooney's just not quite sure, and there's so much there's such an importance for Kyle Shanahan and his offense on how perfect everybody does everything and how plays are run, and you got to really know what you're doing and be out there and be in the right place. And there's a lot put on players, and we saw that with Brandon Aiyuk. He wouldn't have played early in his career if he wasn't forced into the lineup because of injuries. And even in his second year, he didn't play him out there because for whatever reason, Kyle Shanahan couldn't trust him.
Listening to Kyle Shanahan, and I don't think that he just blows smoke up everyone's rear end. He talks very highly on Ricky Pearsall.
Yeah, there was the quote. It's an underrated quote, and it was a couple of weeks ago, and he basically said he knows how to work, or he knows how to practice, or he acts like a pro. It was something along those lines that made you think, oh yeah, there's probably not a trip through the doghouse in Ricky Pearsall's future.
No, and he doubled down on that recently, and said something along the lines again, because he was asked about Ricky Pearsall, not playing in this preseason game, but still being ready for week 1, and he just talked about like his preparation with everything else. Like, yeah, he hasn't gotten the live reps, but everything else he does, the preparation is at an extremely high level. I'm like, oh yeah, Kyle likes this dude.
Yeah, Kyle. Don't think Pearsall's a doghouse player, which is why they spent the first round pick on him. All right, next.
Which is why you don't go and just trade for Kendrick Bourne. Like,
right? Yeah, I would rather see Jacob Cowing out there making mistakes than and get a draft pick back than have Kendrick Bourne run around there. No offense to Kendrick Bourne. I like Kendrick Bourne.
I like Kendrick Bourne.
Yeah, he doesn't have a huge value in trade for me. Next, players to watch: 49ers-Raiders preseason finale. This episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals, not just quality people, but the ones that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. And LinkedIn just isn't some regular old job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who might not actively be searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role, your role. Because in a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. And LinkedIn knows small business owners are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. So that's why LinkedIn is constantly finding new ways to make the process easier and have launched tons of new features to help you in your job search. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, Croc, which player are you most excited to watch in the preseason finale against the Las Vegas Raiders, and why is it Jacob Cowing?
It's got to be Jacob Cowing, because I think a lot like Dominique Pooney, and you remember from training camp, I'm like, man, Dominique Pooney was really good. Like, can he do it again? Then you watch him do it again. And then it's like, okay, but can he do it in the preseason game? Then it's like, pretty damn good again. Then you watch him in the next one. It's like, well, maybe the kid is just kind of good, And Jacob Cowing, now we finally get a chance to see him live and in action. And you're like, you know what? 4 catches, another, handoff that he took for 20 yards. He's catching punts, looks clean. Can he build off of this? So I don't know how the answer is anyone but him. And that's not to say that I haven't enjoyed watching other rookies or even second-year guys, but with what you've seen so far from Jacob Cowing in limited action, it's almost like the double-stuffed Oreo cookies. I always think I can have one, and then it's like, I just can't stop at one. I need more. I need to see more of Jacob Cowing now. I can't just stop with don't just tease me with what you gave me last week against the Saints. I need more of that.
Are you a double-stuffed guy?
Oh, I can't keep them in the house. I'll run through a whole family-sized pack.
I agree. Oreos is one of those things that's really hard to have just one. Everybody in my family loves them too, so they go quick when they're in the house. I'm a thins guy though. I think the ratio is I would rather have half as much cream than twice as much cream in my Oreo personally. I like more the cookie than the cream. Croc's a cream guy.
Definitely.
Big cream guy over here. I want to keep the young players are important. Where's it at here? Todd. Again, we're going to go back to Todd in the chat, who says players to watch: Guerendo and Brock Bowers. Those are two really good ones. And Guerendo now healthy. Hopefully he's on the field in this game. And for Guerendo, it's the exact opposite of Cody Schrader. Cody Schrader has some vision, runs tough, can catch the ball out of the backfield, but there was just a lack of juice. Guerendo's big, fast. He's got juice. I want to see the vision from him. I want to see him working in the small spaces, see if he can find that, because I already know what his height, weight, speed is. I want to see how natural he looks as a runner at running back, because I still have some questions there. And the guy only started one game in college, and you draft him in the 4th round. He's that big and that fast. He only started one game in college at running back. So those are the questions I have. I'm really interested to see what Guerendo looks like in live game action, if he's a natural runner or not.
He is another guy definitely interested to see, and I'm pretty sure he's going to get a lot of action in this game. They've seen other guys. They know what they bring to the table. Like, would you be surprised at all if, whatever you've gotten out of Cody Schrader is like, that's just kind of him, right? Like, that's how it feels. So I would like to see, okay, well, what can we get out of a guy like Guerendo, and what does that look like? I like that he added Brock Bowers as well. I completely forgot about Brock Bowers. And I do remember when he was drafted, it was kind of a shocker because they just drafted the Michael Mayers kid out of Notre Dame the year before. But Brock Bowers, a terrific pass catcher, more of a move off the ball tight end. I wonder if he's been more hand in the dirt for the Raiders. Have they utilized him in a different way than how he was used at Georgia? And really, not just Brock Bowers, but how do the 49ers young linebackers defend him? How do they guard him? What do they look like in space against him? That's something to keep an eye on as well. Or maybe Mustafa, right? A safety. Maybe you end up getting matched up on a guy like Bowers. Does the size difference make a huge difference for these guys, and maybe how you have to utilize him? So I think I like that he mentioned Brock Bowers for sure.
I want to go to Viet Ta here, who says Green and Mustafa for me. I want to see if we should be worried about the DBs of the future. I'm excited for Green and Mustafa. The 49ers have a lot of we talk about, oh man, 49ers could have done this. They could have maybe done something different in the 1st round. Did they overdraft Pearsall? They didn't get that offensive tackle. But man, they've got some hits in this draft too. I'm convinced on Pooney. Love what I see from him. And I've really liked what I've seen from Bernardo Green and Malik Mustafa. I think they might have drafted 3 future starters right there. And if you get 3 future starters from a draft, that's already a pretty good draft. And you're still not sure exactly what counting is going to be. You're not sure exactly what Ricky Pearsall, your 1st rounder, is going to be too. So that's a pretty good draft already. And I want to see more of Green and more of Mustafa as well. How early do they look like they could play early, right? And that's kind of the thing that gets you excited. Could Malik Mustafa start in week 1 if Hufanga's not ready?
I think so. I mean, we've seen some good things out of Odom back there at safety, but the 49ers have a great opportunity to kind of build for the future. You have Jair Brown. He's out there. He's been making plays, especially in the run game. I think he's been tackling well. Can you build off of that and have Mustafa be another guy that, at the very least, you feel very comfortable with him potentially starting? And if he doesn't start early on, do you see a path towards him starting later in the year? And if so, that may mean the end of Talanoa Hufanga, which I just can't believe it ends like that. I just can't. But I would like to see Mustafa at least try to make a role for himself.
All in all, you would hate to see Talanoa Hufanga walk, but all in all, if you draft a guy in the 5th round, he makes an all-pro for you, is a multi-year starter, and then you let him walk, and then you end up getting a comp pick back that's higher than the pick you used on him in the first place, it's pretty good. I mean, that's a pretty good run for one guy, especially if you're able to draft someone who can replace him. And again, with another day 3 pick in Malik Mustafa. Nobody's trying to push Talanoa Hufanga out the door, though. Make no mistake about that. And hopefully he is ready to go for week 1.
I think it's one of those things where, we just haven't seen him in a while. And then you forget. Then you finally see, him and that long hair flying around. And like, oh, yeah, maybe we shouldn't let him walk.
But like, there's some realities with the roster and how many guys they pay too. They're paying a lot of guys, a lot of money. Trent Williams going to get a little bit more. Maybe you try to keep Aiyuk and Debo around for beyond this year together. You're going to pay a safety, and then you're going to pay a guard in Aaron Banks, and then you're going to pay a who else? Somebody else. There's multiple guys that are up for free agency. Like some of these guys are going to have to end up walking because you can't pay everybody top of the market money. And just about every position is making tons of money these days. And it's kind of crazy. By the way, Michael Mayer, talking about trade targets. If Brock, they just dropped to the first round tight end. Michael Mayer could be a sneaky guy that'd be a nice fit for the 49ers if he ends up being just a straight up backup tight end and they don't run enough 2 tight end sets to make it worthwhile for them. Could you throw a pick at the Raiders and get Michael Mayer and finally find your backup tight end for George Kittle next year?
And not just backup tight end. And again, you talked about not pushing Talanoa Hufanga out of there. I don't want to push George Kittle out, but I mean, George Kittle is in his 30s now. You know, at what point do you start to need that kind of long-term solution, you know, for after him? I think the 49ers have done a really good job of kind of having the next man ready to go in a lot of these positions. Maybe you look at Michael Mayer as a long-term solution, not just as tight end 2.
Robbie Chosen, is he going to get his first action for the 49ers? I want to see what Robbie Chosen looks like on the 49ers roster. But really, it's for me, it's, you know, all the rookies, of course, all the newer players. You want to see more of them, see what they look like in a 49ers uniform. But Dobbs versus Brandon Allen, not done yet. Is Tanner Mordecai going to get a chance to show he's something, or is he I have a feeling he's not going to play a lot and he's going to be a practice squad stash for Tanner Mordecai. And those Tanner Mordecai fans might be a little disappointed if he doesn't end up playing a lot because they want to really hash things out with Brandon Allen, Joshua Dobbs, and make sure they've got a competent backup quarterback for the season if Brock Purdy, you know, would, knock on wood, at some point get hurt this year. But I think the best battle aside from that is probably depth on the offensive line. You know, the Zakels and the Ben Barches, and I think Jalen Moore's got his spot locked up. But, you know, Chris Hubbard, and there's some battles there. Jarrett Kingston and Drake Nugent. So I'm definitely be watching those guys. And Croc, you mentioned already the linebackers. I think that's a great battle. I think that's one of the toughest positions, one of the deepest positions, even without Dre Greenlaw. Like Jalen Graham, I love what I've seen from Tatum Bethune. Would they dare cut the veteran and Demetrius Flanagan Fowles? He's almost like, he's almost the new cockroach that they can't get rid of. And Curtis Robinson has looked great. D. Winters has looked really good. So there's going to be some decisions to make at linebacker as well.
The linebacker position, that's a must watch. And just the second year guys in particular, what do they continue to look like? And I've talked about guys just, you know, wanting more. Shoes Robinson, does he just continue to look like what he's been looking like? And if so, how does that affect the way that this linebacker group shakes out when they make their final cuts?
No doubt, man. A former safety. I want to see these guys cover Brock Bowers and Michael Mayer. So that's going to be very fun in this game. Absolutely. And Presley Harvin, is he going to punt or is it Mitch Wishnowsky? I don't know. Wishnowsky's still hurt, right?
Wishnowsky, haven't heard any updates on his injury, but I think when you see someone punting that well, and you know how cutthroat sometimes Shanahan and Lynch can be, you might be trying to tell yourself, all right, dude, you gotta get this together. You got to get out there.
Last one here. This is a good one from Papa J in the chat. He says, definitely want to see more of Leonard Floyd. Now, Leonard Floyd's a veteran. I don't need to necessarily scout him, but I do want to see what the first team defensive line looks like because the 49ers are built around a strong defensive line, and we haven't really had an indication of what that unit looks like. And the second unit hasn't looked overwhelming at all. So I would love to see that first unit on the field for like a series and see them dominate and then get them out of there. I would really, it'd make me feel a lot better going into the season just to know that a strength is still a strength there with Floyd and Bosa on the outside and with Collins and Hargrave in the interior being one of the better lines in the league.
Very unique preseason here. Just haven't seen any of the starters and yeah, hopefully they play a little bit more. At least you said one series. I want to see 2. Just give us 2 dominant series and get out of there.
Put Bosa on ice early. Maybe get YGM in there for the second series. But yeah, see what they look like together, man. Give us a glimpse of what a Super Bowl team is that we expect to see from the San Francisco 49ers. Because vibes are weird. I think vibes would be high if you see that first unit go out there and smack down the Raiders, even in a preseason game. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. For your second listen, check out Locked On Fantasy Football. Get your fantasy draft strategies ready so you can go win your leagues this season. Locked On Dynasty as well. The Peacock and Williamson NFL show. 200 shows on the network to get you through any day, every day. And, of course, your team is covered right here, no matter the sport, at Locked On. Croc and I back next time to break down everything we saw in the preseason finale right here, Locked On 49ers.
Subscribe to this video.